Welcome, everyone, to Defending Our Children. We're going to have a great conversation today with Landon Starbuck. She has been a friend and someone that's inspired my family and organization in her bold speech against sexual exploitation and the trafficking of children. I would call her a right fighter. I don't know if she's going to accept that moniker, but that's what my wife says, that those of us that stand up for what's good, she says, we're right fighters. I'm like, I like that. But Landon's the president of Freedom Forever. I'll let her talk about that. And man, she's been a singer and songwriter. She's talented. She's got good family, and we just appreciate her heart and her bold voice, and moral conviction, and moral courage to stand up and speak the truth in a time where it's really, the truth seems to be so censored and suppressed. So, Landon, welcome to the show, and please feel free to let everybody know anything more you would have them know about you before we throttle up with this beneficial conversation for the children.
Well, I just love y'all's work and your service to our country, Craig, and everybody else at Veterans for Child Rescue. So thank you so much for that, and also for just allowing me to come on your platform and inviting me. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Landon, there's always a journey. There's always a story between birth and when someone becomes an outspoken advocate for some sort of wrong. You want to share with us, as we get started, a little bit of your journey, like what makes Landon stand up and say, hey, you know what, here's a harm that I'm not okay with, and let's set about bringing some solutions.
Sure. Well, I'll try to just make it short, but I think that most people, their greatest fear is death. And I was confronted with that at a very young age, at just 16, when I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So that reckoning caused me to conquer that fear of death at a very young age, because I had to decide what I was going to be living for. And so after I won my battle with cancer, I had this dream of doing something to make the world a better place. And I thought that would be my music. I thought that it would be using my voice, the gifts that God gave me to sing and perform and write. And so I packed my bags at 18, moved to Hollywood to have the Hollywood dream, but was very naive and didn't have the family fabric to recognize grooming and red flags and all of those things. So when I witnessed this sexual quid pro quo system that Hollywood perpetuates, and it sadly targets our children very young ages. I mean, these aren't secrets. These are things that you can see with your own eyes, from Nickelodeon to Disney, these young child stars. I witnessed that exploitation, and I didn't have the words for it or really understand what I was seeing at that time. I really realized what was happening. And I think I was in my 20s, my early 20s, when I realized this is wrong. And I wanted to use my voice to speak out about it, to educate, but also I was just done with that system. I couldn't participate anymore. So I knew I wanted to leave. I knew I wanted to do something to draw awareness to what was happening. But that's when I really became trauma informed. I worked with different organizations, and I understood that the problem wasn't just Hollywood. Hollywood's more of the marketing arm, creating the demand for the normalization of these behaviors, but it extends into every one of our homes across America. And so I think I was just being trained, over 10 years of really educating myself on the problem, from the behavioral aspect to demand, to understanding how policy affects all of these things, and how different nonprofits that are very well funded combat these issues and sadly don't yield the results to make a dent in this demand. And so that's really what drives me and inspires me, and why I started my nonprofit, which is focused on prevention-based activism. So there's one less kid needing to be rescued. So that is my story, and that's why I'm here today.
Yeah, man. Well, we appreciate you. And I love the prevention solution, because I would rather have children spared from unthinkable trauma than rescue them from it and go through have them endure the process of healing and all of the years and pain. And, God is great, and he is love. And it's only through him that we see real healing out there. And so he can do it. He does it all the time, but I would rather the little ones not have to experience the harm. So the solution, man, anytime we can get to a prevention solution, I always celebrate that. It's ultimately that's the optimal way to approach it. So we celebrate that, and thank you for what you're doing out there. So, we've got a daughter she's a talented actress and singer, and she's determined to make it, and she's out there fighting that LA monster right now. So we appreciate your experience out there, and we'll probably share some anecdotes and lessons learned that you've gone through that. But I think anybody that's got little ones out there that's aspiring to become any sort of success in any entertainment industry, they got to realize, there are gatekeepers and there are prices to pay, and it's ugly. And our daughter does know that. She's well aware, so that's good. But for others, what kinds of things? I mean, there's the casting couch. There's all these things. I've got an actor friend he's a male. He's a handsome guy. He was a special forces veteran, but he was expected to have sex with big executive producers and Hollywood studio execs to get major roles. Of course, he wasn't wired that way, so he wasn't going to do it. But you want to share a little bit more about the realities of that? We know about Harvey Weinstein and all that, but it's good to hear inside scoop of maybe personal stories or experiences you may have had, so people can be aware.
Sure. Well, there's a very open secret. There's literally a documentary called Open Secret about the pedophilia that is very rampant in Hollywood and the demand for that there. And then there's the countless voices of these adult superstars who talk about their rape, their abuse as children throughout that system. So there's not a lack of, of evidence of voices speaking out. I mean, I always tell people this. With all the pop stars, Lady Gaga, all of these celebrities, name one who has not been raped, who has not come out and talked about their sexual exploitation as a child. It's harder to do that than to say, one who, has not. So, or has been, so it's, or sorry, you know what I'm saying? So it's most of these females.
It's more common than not. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, there's that, but there's also my personal experiences that I can share and speak to. And that was that it took me a while to realize, because I chose not to participate in that, not go to the parties, not take my clothes off, I suffered consequences, but I didn't realize that was the reason for a very long time. I'm embarrassed to say it took me so long. There's a couple, stories I share that I think were very instrumental into that learning how the system works. And one was when I first got my big record deal. I had already cut half the record. We were celebrating. I had a manager, big agent, big label. And I gave this speech. They asked me to say a few words at this dinner that was celebrating the record deal and upcoming release. And I gave this whole speech that I was so proud to be a female that was going to be able to be a role model that I didn't have as a young girl, that wasn't going to take their clothes off, wasn't going to compromise their morals and their convictions, and that I was not going to deviate from that. I just boldly declared that. And the next day, my label dropped me. Soon after, my manager did. Everything fell apart. And I did not understand what was happening. And I was so naive. I literally baked chocolate chip cookies for the label and dropped it off thinking I had said something to offend someone or something happened. I didn't know what was happening. So that in my naive child mind, I thought that would make it better. And it didn't. And so, eventually I just kept going. I'm very resilient. I found a new manager, I built up a new project. I've been through different bands and all these things. I was on the rise. I was actually charting on Billboard at that time. And I had a manager who asked me, he said, hey, you want this really big tour with this boy band, huge band. And this is one of those moments in the industry where you make it to this tour, you are now a household name, you are selling millions of records. It makes the difference of that jump from just charting. And so I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll do it. He said, okay, you're an actress, you have the experience of that. I want you to be the love interest in this. And I said, okay. I wasn't super excited about that idea, but I show up on set and they have the wardrobe rack with a bunch of lingerie hanging on it.
There we go.
And they said, all right, so you can pick what you'd like. And there's different colors. And I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. I did not know this was the deal. I'm sorry, I can't do this. And they said, that's okay. There's a line of other girls who are happy to take your place. And That's exactly what happened. Until this day, an artist we all know took my place and elevated their career and all of those things. But it wasn't just that. It was so many similar situations like that.
Landon, we do have to cut to a quick break. Let's unpack that a little bit just on the other side. Stand by, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Defending Our Children. We're on with Landon Starbuck. She is just talking about what she experienced with a major role, a major opportunity she got, and what the price was going to be for getting that opportunity. Landon, please let everybody know the truth, what you experienced there.
I lost the big opportunity for the tour because I didn't want to star in the video and wear lingerie. So that was one example of me starting to understand how things work. But I was still pretty naive. And I thought, you know what? It's just these few bad apples. I just really need to be more discerning about who I work with and all of those things. And I was always having to rebrand myself. And that's something that I think a lot of parents need to understand about the industry is it is not merit-based. It's not based on raw talent. It's not based on how great a singer you are or even how like naturally beautiful you are or entertaining qualities. It's really not, because all of those things can be packaged together. It's really about like a shtick, a persona that you are asked to adopt to fill a niche in the market that they need. So, you know, if they're saying, okay, we need you to be edgy, we need you to be more dark, we need you to wear dark makeup and, you know, have this more Kesha type vibe. These are the things that you're asked to do. And I think for me, I thought I chose those options thinking it would be better than undressing, you know, sexually. So I didn't understand the darkness that I was entering into by just, you know, making more dark music and more esoteric, more just not very joyful. So my artistry was really stifled and buried. And that's what happens to so many really bright, young, aspiring, talented people that come into this belly of the beast, if you will, you know, with the greatest intentions and the greatest raw talent. And I think that more parents and especially young people that have that dream need to understand the reality. That doesn't mean that we have to be fearful or to never engage and embrace the arts. It just means that there has to be better strategy and awareness of how the system works and how you can infiltrate it and use it to your benefit and in ways that empower you and make art great again. But the system itself is very compromised. There's a lot of exploitation that I would witness from other girls who would make certain choices, have their careers elevated, or, you know, who sadly would get very addicted to drugs. And one example that's just popping into my mind was there was one young woman who we all know who was in rehab, and they put her in rehab like over the weekend. She had an abortion, I think, right after that, and then was on the cover of a health magazine, like in a bikini on Health magazine, the picture of health. And I'm going, okay, something's not right here. What is this whole world? Have I been seeing things through naive eyes? And that's when I really started to understand. But when you understand that whole world that you think is one thing is something very dark, it causes some depression. It causes you to have sort of an identity crisis. And I went to a very dark depression, realizing that not only had I essentially wasted a lot of my talent and time and years, but that I'd been lied to. And I didn't really know what my identity was at this point because I'd been repackaged, recycled as so many different artists and sounds and looks. And I just felt used and I felt gross and I felt dirty and I wanted out. And I thought that it'd be better writing for Disney and Nickelodeon stars, which paid really well, but it was worse because then I saw, you know, a lot of children, you know, being dropped off by their parents with these 40 plus, you know, your old male producers. You can put two and two together. And I said, I'm out. I can't do this. You can't pay me enough to do this. So it was really a difficult period in my life to realize, why did I go through all of this? Why did I see everything I saw? And that's where I felt the Lord was putting it on my heart to use my voice in a different way, not to entertain people, but to awaken people.
There you go. Because the little ones, like you said, there's a lot of naivety. If you're raised in a loving family and you're not specifically educated on the agenda, the dark agenda, and that it's not merit-based, then it's a very upsetting revelation. And it's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled. And seeing that, you know, there's an ugly, even a hostile agenda behind this, that they literally mean to harm the American people through this process. It's a very ugly awakening, but it's empowering. And you've been sent through it to educate and empower you, like a school, if you will, an immersion school of, hey, here's what goes on in this industry. And so now you can warn and alert others. Forrest, I see you got a question, bro.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to point something out, Landon, that you said that you touched upon. And in my personal journey, Craig and I have been talking about, you know, high vibrational energy. And so I would listen to political podcasts when I run. A couple of years ago, I could run a 10-minute half marathon average. Now I am struggling. And I've noticed that when I switch over to praise music, it's still a struggle, but my times are better, my distance better. I'm really struggling. And Craig keeps talking. We keep talking about how important it is on what you're ingesting. And so what you were talking about, you went to this dark phase. And I've noticed that when I see some of these artists do that, I'm thinking, oh, well, you've got such a beautiful voice. You have so much to contribute. Why are you turning that way? So now I'm understanding. But I think it's important people to know what we ingest impacts our output. And so what you're doing, I think, is great. I'm going to start. I actually tagged you in Tidal. I'm going to start listening to some of your music.
Yeah, we have to program ourselves with the right things. I always say it's either from the Father, it's from the Creator, from the kingdom of heaven, or it's not. And if it's not, if it's self-serving, it's ultimately serving evil. And that's a distortion of what's intended. And it ends up in a lot of harm. Well, sickness and death, ultimately. And so there is such a thing as good and bad. And a lot of people don't really get that. They're like, just follow your nose, do what you will, but no, that there is literally a difference between choosing between the two realms, the divine and the evil, really. So,
well, I'm
Absolutely.
actually measuring this, and I've run I'll run a mile and I'll be listening to a political thing. And I'm like, why am I struggling? I'll flip over to praise music and I'll just calm my heart, and I'm doing better. So I've measured what we're talking about.
It's funny, Landon, I see so many people discovering the kind of the path, the better path in their life. People that have this spec ops veterans and all these guys that have experienced, every which kind of thing. And they're all discovering the same truth. There's love is what matters. We're supposed to love each other, and things don't mean anything. And it's cool. Some of the guys just calling and saying, Craig, it's like stuff doesn't matter at all. Like, we're supposed to love each other. And there's a big consciousness. Like, there's like, God is real. And I'm like, yep. It's cool to see people open up their awareness and learn. So you're in a position to do that for so many, with your experience. I just celebrate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to inspire people to realize that there is evil and good, and the more evil you realize that there is, it has you running in the opposite direction, and there has to be somewhere to go, and that's where I find my hope, is understanding that the evil, there's a lot of it, but if it was more powerful than the good, it would have already overtaken all of us. There would be no joy, there would be no love, there would be no goodness, there'd be no fighters like you and your team fighting for the innocent and the vulnerable. So the good wins every day, and it will continue to prevail as more people come into that consciousness.
How does it feel when you decide to do good with your time, Landon, each day?
It feels peaceful and fulfilling, because I have peace knowing that I'm living my purpose, that I have a purpose, and that I'm serving something higher than myself. Because when you serve yourself or you serve the world, it's so limited. And when you look in the mirror, you almost feel like a product. And in the entertainment industry, that's exactly how I felt. And I think that's why so many of these young, stars or celebrities have these crash and burnouts where they go on drug binges or they commit suicide. When you look and you realize that you're just a commodity to the world, and that the way that you show up is to pacify some worldly need, and you don't have an identity, you don't have a purpose, that is a really hard reckoning to look at yourself and see that in the mirror. But now, I see that I'm a child of God, and that I have a purpose, and that serving, others is my fulfillment. I don't need to serve myself. I need to serve my family and others. That is what is the most fulfilling thing to me. And, I'm never going to save all the kids. We're never going to be able to do all that. But as long as I'm doing what God has called me to do, and I do my best every day, then I can sleep good at night. And I'm a happy, joyful person.
That's the truth right there. And truth is love. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Defending Our Children, everyone. This is our third segment with Landon Starbuck today. Landon, what is it that media, what effect is it that you really see that they have? There's a lot of power there, a lot of suggestibility, a lot of psychology there. What do you see from inside the entertainment industry on the power and influence that it has.
It has enormous influence, especially on young, developing sponge-like minds, on our youth. And something interesting happens when we are watching a program, watching TV. Our brain goes into a trance state of high suggestibility. That means that if there's any subconscious baked in ideas or programs or attitudes or belief systems, that we don't necessarily have a moral filter in our conscious state that we can run everything through. It just kind of lands and gets trapped in our subconscious and has to have somewhere to go and relate to. And I'm really fascinated with the field of neuroplasticity because the brain likes what's familiar. So it's naturally going to seek out in our physical reality all of those connections to help understand and process the other things that it's been suggested. And so when a child is watching a show and they might be suggested, something about hypersexual content, about how hypersexual things are empowering, especially to women, young girls are particularly vulnerable to this messaging. They learn that if I take my clothes off, I can be happy. I can have power. I can have attention. And these are vulnerabilities that, we see traffickers prey on, but media and advertising and also, the entertainment industry prey on those vulnerabilities as well. Maybe it's to sell products. Maybe it's to shift social attitudes and perceptions or to turn kids into activists. So a lot of, nefarious outcomes can happen as a result of that. But, that suggestibility is so high with media programming. Now, music hits at a different level. Music, the frequency of it has a very powerful effect on our emotional state. And we all know this, like we all remember the song when we first broke up, from our first love, right? The songs we were listening to. We have emotional bonds and connections to some of that. And looking back at some of those songs that I had those emotional connections to, listening to lyrics, I was like, wow, this is really dark for a 14-year-old girl. Wow, that's a very sexual song. Why was I listening? Who let me listen to that at 13 years old? And I find that the more I talk to friends about this, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's weird. I can't believe that we were even listening to this stuff. And at the time, it was very, Tipper Gore, if you will, to come out and say, oh, this song has these explicit content. It was very, not cool. But now we understand that we are spiritual beings. And it has a very deep effect on our emotional and spiritual state when we are listening to music that is idolizing sexuality, almost serving it, almost worshiping it. And how do we know, outside the spiritual content of like worship, right? Because some people I don't understand that language. I don't connect with it. But if you're not worshiping, we all worship something. If you're worshiping a song, that means you're listening to it a lot. Worship is where our attention is. So people who worship God, he's their center of their worship. But we all worship something. It's where we spend our most time and attention and what has the most profound effect on our consciousness, on our spirit, all of those things. So, there's science to back all of these things up as well. So it is very important, like with kids, what are they exposed to? What environments, not just the physical environments where they're sitting in a chair, but the devices, the music, the programming that they are going into trance state, going into that high suggestibility state, embracing. These are things that we really need. These are access points that are critical in giving our kids the self-defense skills emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah. Wow. I heard someone even say, not only is the music programming us, but we're literally piping it straight into our heads, with the headphones and everything. It's going straight into your brain. And I'm very, very influenced by music. My whole family are very artistic musicians and artists, and man, music moves me big time. Like when I pray and meditate, man, there's certain song lists that I put together, a very specific type of music that's just beautiful and allows me to engage and just feel that. So, man, it's very important. It's very important. We're susceptible to it, and we have to realize and teach our children that there's power there. And when we have to be selective, we have to choose what programming our children are getting, because it can harm them. Now, it's not specifically related to music, but our daughter was online and she found a vegan diet and she began following that vegan diet, but whoever she got it from online did not teach certain precautions, and it hurt her, Landon. I mean, it hurt our daughter, and it hurt a lot of her friends. And it caused a catastrophically low level of B12. And because she didn't know that type of the management tools of what was needed with that extreme of a diet. And man, the doctor said, yeah, she's got no B12 in her body. It's catastrophically low, and it causes psychosis and depression. And it's like, man, whatever your children are getting, it needs to be carefully screened and monitored so that they're not getting into harm's way, because there's a lot of junk out there. It's like your child on the internet seeking, searching through a junkyard, and there's good and bad, but we do owe it to them to make sure they're not getting into harm's way. So that's my long rant on that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that she is okay now, that you figured that out.
They literally started having to give her B12 shots, and and brought her right out of it. It was amazing how quickly she did feel much, much better. Like the lights started coming on. But man, how many of these other precious little ones are, and I could understand, like, her whole reasoning was, I don't want to harm animals. Well, you know what? I don't disagree with her there at all. I'm an animal lover, and I don't want to harm them, but only except for to eat if there's certain nutrients we need. But, it's just, it's a jungle out there, so to speak.
Indeed.
Right.
Really
Absolutely.
is.
Indeed. I will say this, though, when Craig and I grew up, we listened to a lot of praise music, and there was a point in my life where I felt like I'd had enough of it. I had consumed enough of it. So for the longest time, I didn't listen to it because I felt like, hey, I didn't need that. What I've learned is how beneficial that music is for me. I'm now really understanding how it makes me more productive. It calms my brain. I have so much stuff in my head that I'm trying to get rid of because it gets in the way of what we do and what we're doing. So it's hard to translate that to the young kids. I mean, what say you about that? How do we get the young kids to truly understand our message and your message?
Right. Well, I think I talk to my kids about everything has an intention and an outcome, and everything that we do should have an intention and outcome as well. So if you're not conscious of that, someone else is, and someone else is exploiting and benefiting that lack of awareness in you. So if you're going to be using internet, use it with an intention and a purpose, knowing what outcome you want. And the same can be said where, when somebody else is exploiting that experience of a kid who doesn't know, they don't have an intention, they don't have a purpose of what they're doing. And that's where all this bad stuff comes in, is our kids are not really equipped to understand when we listen to a song, what is the intention? What is the purpose? What is the outcome? Then they have an understanding then for them to say, okay, this is how I feel when I listen to this type of music. Is that the outcome I want? Or am I just mindlessly consuming? And when you're mindlessly consuming, that is where the suggestibility comes from, and someone else comes in and is doing that for you. And there's always people taking advantage of other people, and with, like I said earlier, myriad of things, whether it's consumerism to get them to buy products, or data, or, at the worst case, exploitation. Somebody's always going to be getting something from you. So you have to pay attention and equip your children to understand, to use devices, to really any interaction, have an intention, a purpose, and an outcome.
Thank you. Well, Landon, we're going to wrap this first half. So real quickly, let everybody know where to find you and how to support what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, my nonprofit is freedomforever.us. We're a prevention and activism-based organization. And also I'm at Landon Starbuck on Twitter, Instagram, all the places. So please come follow me there.
Thanks for all you do out there, Landon, and everybody. If you can, stay tuned for the second half of our show with Landon Starbuck. For the rest of you, join us next time on Defending Our Children. Welcome to Defending Our Children, everyone. We have on with us today Landon Starbuck. This is the second half of our show with her. She is the president of Freedom Forever, and she's a very bold and outspoken advocate against exploitation, human trafficking, especially child trafficking. And she's been a singer and songwriter. She's very talented. Her husband, Robbie, is also very outspoken. And we would call them right fighters. They stand up for what's right in this world, and we appreciate them and their positive contributions to humanity. So, Landon, thank you for coming back on with us. And let's kick off the second half of our show. How about you?
Thank you so much, Craig.
So it occurred to me, we can start unpacking social media out there, because we all, well, not, I wouldn't say we all, but a lot of us spend a certain amount of time on social media. And I know the children spend a lot of it. So we talk about how they're vulnerable. What kind of minefield is it out there? And maybe we can learn some ways to protect them a little bit better.
Absolutely. Well, we know that all social media is not 100% safe for kids. There's no safe social media for kids, including YouTube, which is still under the umbrella of social media. So what do we do as parents? One of the most important questions we should ask ourselves as parents is, at what age are we comfortable with our child being exposed to pornography and predators? And then if we insert that age of whatever that age comes up in our mind, is at that age, will they be equipped with the digital self-defense skills necessary to withstand the predators and the pornography, to combat it? And so if we can't answer those questions, then our children are not ready for social media and open internet access. Those are the two most important questions that only individual parents can answer. So I don't necessarily put an age on it. I would say at a minimum of 16, because we wouldn't give a kid a car at 14 because of the brain development, what we know it does. We have so many really poor health outcomes that we know of now. I mean, even the Surgeon General came out and said that social media is harmful. It's a public health crisis for our youth. It's destroying their minds, their spirits. And we're seeing it weaponized to promote dangerous ideologies that's resulting a lot of bodily harm, physical and emotional harm to kids as well. So knowing all of those things, any positives that could be gleaned from it are far outweighed by the negatives. And most importantly, outside of just avoiding all the bad, what good are we preserving for our kids? What childhood are we leaving them with after social media and internet? These are the questions that we have to ask before we even talk about social media or the harms of it, or what age it's appropriate.
Wow, what a powerful thought and statement. What childhood do we have for them outside of that, beyond that? What are we providing for them? What atmosphere, what environment? Landon, when I magically go back and become a young parent again, in my elder years, when I get a second chance, I'm going to do it so much better. I look back.
Grandparents. When we get to be grandparents, we get to do
Yeah, maybe that's what it'll be. But man, I can look back and when we have these conversations, I see so many opportunities that I missed as a parent. And we shouldn't live in regret, but I see where there's so much opportunity to do better. And I think that's the beauty of these conversations is bringing up these points so other people who are still younger or, new grandparents can introduce those ideas and bring those lessons learned, prevent so much harm to the little ones. So
for me, Craig, I feel like as a father, I spent a lot of time coaching Girl Scouts. I was always there with a video camera, but where I failed is this device right here. This is what we're competing with, and you can't compete with this device. And so I tell
he's holding up his phone, everybody.
Yeah, I'm holding up my phone.
Don't have video.
Yeah, I'm sorry, your phone. And and of course, Mark Strauss, who we've had on the show, who is a technologist, he said, do not get your kids a smart device until they're 18 years old. I truly believe that today, because you've got an average of 3 AIs talking to your child. You can't compete with these AIs that are putting this message subliminally and, 1/2 degree at a time. And so by the time I figured out the problems that I have with my kids, it was too late. So now I'm at the end of the pack trying to catch up. So yeah, I think that's where I feel like I failed, Craig.
Well, it may sound like a radical idea. Don't have a smart device, a smartphone in your child's hand until they're 18. Well, you buy them a phone, they can have a simple flip phone or something like that they can text to you with, and they can call and they can get help when they need help. But it's all the other stuff that the smartphones provide that gets the children in trouble before they're ready. So I don't think that that's a radical idea. First time I heard it, I thought, wow, that'd be pretty unique. But the more I review that mentally, I realize that'd be a really, really wise way to safeguard your child from so many things that literally do destroy their lives. So.
Absolutely. And for us, part of the reason so many parents in your situation made the same decision and have those same regrets is because they were not given true informed consent, as people like to talk about what that would entail with giving kids those devices. And these social media companies have been lying through their teeth, saying, oh, these parental support, these parental protections and safeguards are in place. And that gave parents an illusion of safety that was actually not there. And that's why we've seen so many children exploited, their rapes monetized online, and they can't get their images down. So parents have not been given informed consent, and these social media companies have yet to be held accountable by our politicians. So really, it's parents. It's our responsibility to educate, and that's why I'm so passionate, because I know that if parents had that informed consent, they would make a different choice. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing right now, is to educate parents so that they know the harms. But as much as I'm passionate about the awareness of all the harms of social media, I am more passionate about restoring childhood, preserving childhood innocence, and restoring and strengthening that parent-child bond and connection so our families can start thriving again. When we're talking about root causes and the vulnerabilities that are created by weak families and absent fathers and parents that aren't paying attention to their children, it all boils down to that parent-child connection being severed. And there's never been a greater attack on our kids and our families. And so to think of it that way, of what are we building, not just what are we avoiding, is a game changer.
Well, when you look at the enemy of the United States, those who openly declared that they were going to overthrow the United States without firing a single shot, put in there destruction of the nuclear family unit as one of their targets. Why? Because that's what made our nation so strong. The faith in Jesus Christ being one, the unity and the purpose of everything, the culture, but the raising of well-grounded, secure children by a loving mother and father is something that brings a lot of strength and unity to a nation. And that is specifically under attack. And we are spiritual beings, and there is a design behind how a child is supposed to be raised and develop. And when that is disrupted and that is robbed, there's great harm done.
I'm going to point out
Absolutely.
something, Craig, that you touched upon. And if you read the 45 Communist Goals as read in the Congressional Record, January 10th, 1963, number 40 is discredit the family as an institution, encourage promiscuity and easy divorce, and then emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. I mean, right there, this has been going on. This has been the enemy of our country's game plan. They've revealed it to us. Yuri Bezmenov, he revealed this to us.
Don't you think, Landon, that if you were the leader of a country and if you loved your country, you would make them aware? You would read that list to the American people next time you got on television and say, look, we are under attack, and here's how. And so let's counter this destruction of our culture. Well, don't you think we would have presidents reading that list and preparing the people against the harm being done to our culture?
Absolutely. And not only the president, but the leaders, people in positions of great political power that would recognize those threats and want to warn the American people and fight for those ideals to preserve parental rights, the family unit. I mean, right now in California, if you don't use your child's pronouns, your child can be taken, stolen by the state. This is legal trafficking of children. And that's something that is now into law. And there's families that are paying the price. So we're seeing it so many different angles and attacks on the family. So it's very alarming.
Yes, ma'am. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Defending Our Children. We're talking with Landon Starbuck about all of the different programming that our children are experiencing out there and how we need to ensure that they're getting good information, that they're getting a healthy, loving childhood so that they are secure and they are well-grounded as they grow and develop and become productive, content, and secure adults. And we have a free country continuing onward. So we are deliberately under attack in the United States, and the nuclear family unit of loving mother and father unit are deliberately being demonized. And that whole family unit is being destroyed. And that's what our enemy laid out that they were going to do in the 45 communist goals. It was read before Congress in 1963, and we failed to learn that lesson. So now we see people being paid to have children as long as there's no father in the picture. What an ugly, ugly thing. What an ugly thing. And so many children are being attacked specifically when there is no strong father in the picture. And, it takes a loving, nurturing mother and a strong, protective, providing father to be the ultimate unbeatable pair, the divine design behind the parental team. So anyway, here's to those that have to do it without a partner. Raise a child, it's a very, very difficult thing. And we pray God blesses them and they do it to the best of their ability. But we do need to realize that a loving mother and father is unbeatable. That is the way to raise our children. So, Landon, you've been sharing so many great things. I want to let you continue. I want to shut up a little bit more and let you just unpack what you've seen out there and what you think people need to know.
Yeah, sure. I'll share a couple things that I think help parents really have a tangible example of the effects of social media or open internet access rewiring kids' brains. So when a baby or a young toddler is given a device just to hold and entertain the child, that is where the most dangerous brain wiring at such a young age starts. Because if you do that and then you give your kid some organic wood blocks to play with, they're going to look at those blocks, knock them over and cry. Why are they going to do that? Because those blocks do not stimulate them. They don't move. They don't have colors. They don't have sounds. The brain is used to high degree of stimulus. If you look at shows like there's this like baby Coco Melon. If you pay attention as a parent to the time frame in editing of Coco Melon, they do not hold on one sequence or one frame for very long. So what that's doing to the brain is it's rewiring it to have to need constant stimulus like this, like this, like this, like this. They cannot hold on to a narrative long enough to even form a connection or to learn something or to identify with a character. What that's doing to their brain in this swipe left culture of, that you fast forward that to OnlyFans culture of just, oh, I don't want that. I want this. We're taking joy away. It's not just about all the harms. They can no longer have joy playing with blocks as a baby. You put your kid outside, they no longer can experience the joy and the simplicity of just being in nature because they have been conditioned to need this high level of constant stimulation for their brain to feel okay. And we talked about that in the earlier segment of what we know about neuroplasticity of the brain. It craves what's familiar. It needs that to maintain that high level of stimulation to feel even emotionally happy. And so that's why we see kids when they get their device taken away, throw tantrums, punch walls, all of these things. It is an addiction that's happening in the brain. It's so much greater than just the pornography and the predators and the sextortion, all of these horrible things that we know and we hear about. But what it's doing to children's brains and their behavior is very, very difficult to rewind. And so that is something that I think more parents need to know the truths and harms of, because certainly the social media companies, certainly the politicians are not going to give them that informed consent.
Yeah, it's like the social media platforms will just ride the money train and write their algorithms to whatever benefits them, to the most clicks, the most interaction, the most revenue, and without any regard to what is best for the populace at all. I talked to some execs at the top of one of the biggest social media corporations probably 4 years ago now. And as when we first started seeing this major censorship, my following interaction dropped off like 90%. I was asking them, what's happened here? And they said, well, we're trying to give our users a better user experience so that they encounter more of what they like and less of what they don't like. And my problem with that is that, it's just like giving a child, cake or candy every meal, because that's what might taste good in the moment. But it also takes away this algorithm separating people. It takes away that central watering hole where people that don't agree or see things the same way may be able to encounter each other and have a civil discussion about it and explore and learn ideas and see different methods of problem solution and things like that. So I think it's very counterproductive. It's allowed people to go to their separate silos and slam the door, and they never see or hear from each other again, to all for the purpose of giving a better user experience, quote unquote. Well, there may be something more important than just each person perceiving a better user experience.
Right.
I've experienced it, man. In the last few years, my schedule's been so hectic that I find myself having a very difficult time to slow down and tune in, and I've got a lot of books that people tell me, please read this, please read it. And I'm like, I can't. I don't read anymore. I read the Bible each morning for a period of time, and that's it. I don't have the focus to read anything else. And it's just my brain's changed. And I know that it's exactly what you're talking about. It's just constant stimulus, and it's swipe, and try to get everything addressed, because you got 10 other things to do. You got phone calls and meetings and this and that and travel. And your mind just gets very, very busy. And I see that in the children. They're not able to focus and slow down and learn. It's like their little minds are frazzled because they're used to that rapid pace and change. Right. So you're definitely right on the money there.
It's a dopamine driven society. And Landon, I don't know if you noticed this, but in the last 5 years or so, you're seeing grown people, adults, throwing temper tantrums over a $5 cup of coffee, or that they were delayed on a flight. And I'm talking about you're going to jail temper tantrums. Whereas, us as adults were like, well, how is that happening? I mean, it is what it is kind of my attitude. So I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's just getting worse.
Oh, absolutely. This is why it's so powerful, is it's not just changing the brain, it's changing behavior. And that can be used as a weapon to create a more, docile, subservient, compliant society. It can be used as a weapon to destroy people's identities so that they are seeking outside of themselves to affirm their identities. It can be used to just financially, exploit people. We're seeing so many detrimental effects because when you are easily manipulated behaviorally, you're easily controlled, and you can be made to think, believe, and act in accordance to any agenda because you're so easily manipulated.
Yeah. And if people don't believe that there's anyone behind all of this planning and execution of this and the orchestration of all these things that cause the American populace to be very, very, very controlled, then you need to listen to people like Yuri Bezmenov, who gave us a series of lectures on exactly what's behind ideological subversion and this global group's power grabbing strategy and how to gain the power that they need so that they don't need armies to overthrow the United States. They're doing it culturally, silently, by programming our children to give up the freedoms and liberties that we have without a single shot fired. They're doing it brilliantly. It's very effective. It's scary when you read the 45 communist goals, the list that Forrest held up. Everybody needs to know it so that we can simply safeguard ourselves from it. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more from Landon Starbuck. Welcome back, everyone, to Defending Our Children. This will be our last segment with Landon Starbuck. It's been a great chat, and we're going to bring it on home. And it's all about the children. What are they experiencing in these crazy times, man? And how are they vulnerable? What can we do? Landon's brought some great thoughts and points forward. I agree 100%. I think she's right on the money. Landon, what else do you see, man? What do people need to know from your perspective? You're very experienced and I think wise on what children need for security. They're being programmed and just persuaded in so many ways. What's going on?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited to share, this knowledge with parents because I think parents are the key out of this hell that we're experiencing. It's only going to get worse if we don't have a parenting revolution. If parents don't call their children back home, if parents stop, putting out their, trust to other people to raise their children, whether it's devices or school systems or clubs, our children were designed to be with us, and have that connection with us as much as possible. And so when we stop outsourcing our child's hearts, minds, souls to other institutions, other agendas, we will see a very different reality. And parents are so powerful. And it's a scary thing to, not everybody's going to homeschool. Not everybody's going to be able to be with their kids as much as the children would like for their parents to be with them. But meaningful connection, strengthening connection, protecting them from the inside out. So that's the devices, the people that come into our homes, all the way out into where our children go, their environments, where they spend their most time. Because the mere exposure effect is a very real thing. And the more your child is exposed to other ideologies that are counter to the values that you hold and that you're trying to raise in your children, those will win out. Those impressions will always win out. It's just human behavior. And we need to make sure that we prioritize living out our values, not just telling our kids what our values are. Because when we have our values at home and then we send them into an environment where they're required to lie, to conform, to capitulate to some other worldview, we are undermining our own authority. We are licensing out our authority to other institutions, and we're sending our kids the message that our values aren't really that important. So what we do in these times is more important than anything we can say or virtue signal out. How we live now, our kids are watching and they need us and they want our connection and they love us so much. So we need to strengthen our families. That should be the priority and the mantra for the next 10 years.
Oh yeah. They learn so much more from watching us live our lives than anything we could say to them. And that is just human nature. That's where we draw our truth. We observe what matters to our parents so much that's what they do. That's what they spend their time on. And that's our chance. Well, you said several really profound things that I want to double tap on and back you up on. We need a parenting revolution. God bless you, sister. That is such truth there. And what does that mean? It just means getting back to giving the contribution that we're supposed to as parents. There's a lot of opportunity there. And if you said another thing, stop outsourcing our children, all of the things that they need, man, we need to provide a lot more of that. We can, if only we just will. They need that love and education and security that only the parents can really bring at the level that it was divinely intended. And another thing you said was protect them from the inside out, man. And that's a really profound, even a spiritual thing. We all have to perfect ourselves from the inside out. And when you love someone, you want them protected, and you teach your child how to defend and protect themselves. That starts from the inside. And that's a beautiful thought you shared there. I want people to just kind of marinate on that and protect your children from the inside out. That means education. Knowledge is power. Teach them how to defend themselves against this world, because there are a lot of predators out there.
I totally agree, Craig. And I'm going to challenge society in this regard. We have all of these social media companies and this leadership that are currently supporting the attack on our kids. Where are those leaders that have the bandwidth, the money, and the power to do the opposite, to the antithesis to this? Pardon me. And where are the messaging, the machine that they could build to teach our kids right from wrong, to teach them the things that we need to herald to our children to fight against what the machine is fighting with them. So you and I have been looking for these folks. We're trying to find them. So Landon, I too challenge you to maybe help us in this regard to find the horsepower to fight this on a global level.
Absolutely. Well, that's my mission with Freedom Forever, is to provide as many resources as possible and to partner with every organization that is like-minded, that shares those values and understands the very real threat, this war on children. So, if we come together and we really empower ourselves with that knowledge and equipping and reach to find as many parents as we can and give them this knowledge, I think that is a great step in the right direction.
Indeed.
Fantastic. Well, there's a surge right now on the child trafficking front. The Sound of Freedom film has come out. It's getting a lot of reach. We celebrate that the topic is being highlighted and the consciousness, the awareness is raising, which is what needs to happen. That's what we've been trying to do at Vets for Child Rescue for 6 years, and with our documentary Contraland. So the fact that people are starting to recognize, hey, there's a serious problem here, we need to rally around the children. It's a beautiful development, and it's a process that it has to be ongoing. But I'm glad to see the kind of the lid coming off of this ugly crime against the little ones. And it's a process that it's a painful understanding and revelation, but it's a needed one, so that we can set about safeguarding them from it. What do you
Absolutely.
think?
I would encourage anyone, I have not seen Sound of Freedom. I've heard people really enjoyed it and thought it was very impactful. But I would say that I really would recommend people watch Contraland if you want to understand the types of pedophiles in our neighborhood, in our communities. It is here. It's not just abroad. It's not just on these rescue missions. It's every day we have the opportunity to rescue someone by identifying their needs and vulnerabilities and meeting those before a predator gets to them. So please watch Contraland.
Thank you so much. Yeah, folks, we spent 3 years filming that to bring you the powerful truth that's needed on what's going on here in our country with our children. And what do the predators look like? How prevalent are they? How quickly will they come? It'll turn your stomach, but it's empowering knowledge that you need to know. So we appreciate that, Landon. And you can find that on contralandmovie.com. It is a free public service alert given to the public in good faith by everybody at V4CR and those of you who have supported our mission over the years. That's what it's all about. So thank you, Landon.
My pleasure.
Well, before we run out of time, I want to give you a little bit more time. This is our last segment to drive people where they can find you and support what you do.
Absolutely. So freedomforever.us is my nonprofit. You can visit me there. I also have a website, landonstarbuck.com, with all my social handles. I'm at Landon Starbuck on all the social media channels. So please, join and follow. And we're constantly sharing really great educational content and calls to action, because activism is definitely a needed thing at this point in time. We need more parents, not just to be educated, but take that next step with activism. And so we're here to help meet those needs as much as possible.
Absolutely. Forrest, what thinketh you?
Well, I'm really excited that you have joined us, and I have learned a lot. I've got a lot of takeaways. I'm going to digest this. I'm even go back and listen to it, because I'm always looking to learn, and I'm very appreciative of you coming on and sharing your knowledge with us. And we are going to do our best to support your efforts and see if we can do a force multiplication on your efforts as well as ours.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
And I've learned a lot too. It's always inspiring when you have people with strong moral conviction and moral courage to stand up and speak truth. Landon Starbuck has certainly done that in her life, and I learned a lot here today. So Landon, thank you, bless you, and all that you do. Go out there and keep crushing it. We appreciate you, and everyone else, we appreciate you joining us today and joining us next time on Defending Our Children.
Thank you guys so much.